Secrets of the Emerald Tablets.
Forbidden Knowledge. Television.
This is logged in on November 25th, 2023, Eastern Standard Time. Sensitive material has been breached and it is now in front of the public. This is very sensitive documentation and the world will be in total chaos if leaked, and it is now leaked. All of it. Not one document, all of it. Place of exploitation, Forbidden Knowledge Television. This must be stopped.
All right, what's going on, everyone? Billy Carson here, aka Forbidden Knowledge. We're going to be reading from the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, and we're going to be reading about the secrets of the Emerald Tablets, part 3. I had already done part 1 and went into part 2, and tonight we're going to get into part 3, okay? So make sure we share the video, click that like button, and get this information out there. Let's get the algorithm going, all right? We are live right now. Live. Thank you for joining tonight. Appreciate you. Everyone's starting to fill up the live chat on YouTube and the other socials that we're connected to as well. We are multicasting right now all over the world on many different platforms simultaneously. All right. That's what's going on right now. So appreciate y'all. For those of you who are just popping in, I'm going into the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, but I'm going into the Emerald Tablet Secrets, episode number 3. We already read episode number 1 and number 2 a couple weeks ago, and then I got really busy traveling, working. I just came back from filming my new TV series, The Missing Chapter, and I can't wait to bring that new TV series to y'all. It is incredible. It's amazing. I'm really looking forward to bringing that to y'all. I'll probably show you a screenshot of my new TV set, the set that's custom made just for my show before we get out of here tonight, all right? Thank y'all for joining on TikTok. We got TikTok over here on the cell phone, and we have all the other platforms above. I think 3 different YouTube channels. We have LinkedIn. We're live on X, and we should be live on Instagram. Let me just make sure I've activated that Instagram link right there. Make sure we click the go live button. Okay, there we go. So now we're live as well on Instagram on Anunnaki History on Instagram. So we're going everywhere. We're everywhere right now. All right. We are everywhere, simulcasting. So again, thank y'all for being here. We're going to get into the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. I'll be reading from here. I'll be reading part 3. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me just check some of my social links to make sure I'm linked up properly here. 1 second. Okay, that's correct. Yep. Okay, beautiful. Now, we had left off previously on page 20. We left off on page 20. I'm reading from the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, a book that I wrote 8 years ago, which became a bestseller and has been a bestseller now for 8 years. It predicted so many things, so many scientific discoveries, and it also predicted, if you remember from part 1 and part 2, I was telling you it predicted the area beneath the Sphinx, which is going to come up probably by the time we get to episode 4 of this series. You'll see on page 34 in this book where the prediction of what's beneath the pyramids was just discovered in 2025, and I wrote this book 8 years ago. Okay, so where we had left off was page 20, down about the middle of the page. Okay. If you want to go back and hear episode 1 and episode 2, it's on the Forbidden Knowledge Podcast YouTube account. You can just go back to the Forbidden Knowledge Podcast YouTube account and just look for Emerald Tablet Secrets episode 1 and 2. Okay. So let's get into this. Titus Flavius Clemens of the 2nd century AD is the early church's primary source to understanding ancient Egyptian manuscripts. Prior to becoming a Christian, Clemens was the greatest scholar of his time. He excelled in translating ancient texts from Egypt and Greece. He confirms in his book, the miscellaneous, that the teachings of the ancients, including the Book of Thoth and the Book of Hermes Trismegistus, whom we know was Thoth incarnate, heavily influences Christianity. In his manuscript fragments, such as the Hypotheses, Clemens detailed late in his life an esoteric understanding of some of the facets of the ascension of man. In addition, he seems to reflect the 17th tablet found in Doriel's translation of the Emerald Tablets. Clemens teaches that the universe unfolds as the face of God, followed by 7 lords who are higher than all other gods, demigods, and angels or humans. Clemens warned that future scholars of Christianity that only the most capable of humans could be trusted with these mysteries. So he's saying that this stuff is so deep, only a hand-selected group of people can be trusted with this knowledge. If you're just joining, we're reading from the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, a book I wrote 8 years ago. We're on page number 20 right now. We're getting into episode number 3. So the information is so powerful. And this guy's a Christian. He's saying the information shouldn't be given to everyone at the time that he was going through this. He thought it was just too powerful. The significance of this fact increases when we understand that Clemens' pupils in the bulk become the Church of the Fathers of Christianity. And then I give the link to earlychurch.com/ClementPHP. So every time I make some hardcore claims in this book, there's a source link to the raw material where you can go find it. And Beth is right. Only the adept initiates. Beth in the live chat. So let's see who has had their hands on the Emerald Tablet. Who has had a chance, to come across this information that had made some type of a name for themselves. St. Thomas Aquinas. Thank you, Angelina. St. Thomas Aquinas, very famous. There's a school down here in South Florida named St. Thomas Aquinas. There's a school named after him in South Florida where I live. Why? It's in Miami because it was a famous saint. And that school produces the majority of the NFL players that make it to the NFL, go to college and make it to the NFL. They come out of St. Thomas. Anyway, the Book of Causes, written by St. Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century AD, translates the Hermetic Emerald Tablet from a 9th century AD unknown Arabian source, which Aquinas is able to prove was taken from Proclus' Elements of Theology, sometime in the 5th century AD. All things are part of a single continuous emanation of power from the One. Thomas of Aquinas was a Catholic priest and a doctor of the Church whose works would influence the most great thinkers from the Middle Ages up to present times. And then I have a source link to that information as well. Who else had their hands on these tablets? Sir Isaac Newton, one of the most influential scientists of all time. They didn't say just, some guy who knew some science. They said he's one of the most influential scientists of all time. Sir Isaac Newton was an English mathematician, theologian, astronomer, author, and physicist. Now, keep in mind, all of these people believe in Jesus Christ. All of these people believe in God. Right? He was a theologian, astronomer, author, and physicist. He was known as a key player who revolutionized science. His book, The Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, which was published in 1687, was paramount in laying the foundations of classical mechanics. Newton's Principia formulated the laws of motion and the universal gravitation that dominated scientists' view of the physical universe for the next 3 centuries. Newton removed the last doubts about the validity of the heliocentric model of the solar system and demonstrated that the motions of the objects on the earth and the celestial bodies rest on the same principles. We wouldn't even have satellites today if it wasn't for Sir Isaac Newton. Okay? We wouldn't even have a satellite. Now, again, 1687, he came across the tablets. Not 1900s, not 2000s, 1600s. And there's a source link to this information. And guess where that source link will take you? To the University of Stanford.edu. That's where I got the information from for that section of the book. Every section has a source link. The other one that I just talked about was St. Thomas Aquinas and the Emerald Tablets. That is iep.utm.edu, another university. These aren't just some off-the-dome type thoughts and hypotheses. No. These are well-vetted sources, my friends. Who else had their hands on this information? Philip of Tripoli. Philip of Tripoli translated the Hermetic Emerald Tablet in the 13th century AD. 13th century. I thought the trolls were saying it was done in the 1900s. Again, this is another university source link. Philip of Tripoli translated the Hermetic Emerald Tablet in the 13th century AD. Originally, Philip had translated the lost Greek manuscript, the Secret Book of Secrets. And this is important because the lost manuscript supposedly came from Aristotle as a treatise on life of his most famous pupil, Alexander the Great, 330 BC. Philip spent decades of his life with the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, but also other ancient Egyptian and Greek teachings regarding the secret of wisdom, as was taught by Thoth the Atlantean. His abridged version was available to readers of the High Middle Ages and became the most sought-after text in the Western world. Inherent in his teachings, Roger Bacon found the truth of wisdom and life as our fundamental to the wisdom of Thoth. The source again, iep.utm.edu. Another well-known American university. Speaking of Roger Bacon is one of the earliest European advocates of the modern scientific method, inspired by who? Aristotle. Bacon's major work, the Opus Majus, was sent to Pope Clement IV in Rome in 1267. We done gone back again. Now we're in 1267. Upon the Pope's request, thus, because the high level of acceptance of his works, the ideologies of the Hermetic Emerald Tablet filtered voluminously throughout the halls of Europe's intelligentsia. Source link, iep.utm.edu, the university. Sir Francis Bacon believed that he had discovered the true extent of the subterranean chambers below the sands of the pyramid at the Giza Plateau. What did they discover last year? They discovered the subterranean chambers beneath the sands of the Giza Plateau. Yet, this was written in 1600s. I'm just saying. It's all been proven to be true. So Sir Francis Bacon had discovered the true extent of the subterranean chambers below the sands of the pyramid at the plateau of Giza. The number was 7, the most important number of religious literature. And that may have originated with the mysterious layout of the Book of Thoth. The hidden knowledge in the Thoth's book revealed itself later in chapters, which involves another one of Bacon's works, The Wisdom of the Ancients. And that book, published in 1619, was an allegorical interpretation of hidden truths contained in the ancient myths. Sir Francis Bacon learned many truths from this initiation into the Knights Templar and coded much of his understanding using the cipher 33. Bacon's favorite cipher system he called the Capital Initial Code, and that code spells out the following: the Temple of Solomon hidden under the pyramid. He also found in 33 consecutive layers the words Jesus Christ initiation at the Great Pyramid. Initiation, Jesus Christ. The source link as well is given from philosophybasics.com. We're talking about the knowledge of these underground chambers going back hundreds and in some cases thousands of years. So when people say, well, how did you come up with the hypothesis that this could be true? It's not that I just grabbed it out of the ether. I did the study and the research, and between 7 different amazing scholars, and as well as quotes from Herodotus, I came to the conclusion that this must be real. And of course, the words of Thoth himself. You see? It must be real. Who else had their hands on this information? Professor Carl Jung, one of the greatest writers of all time. Swiss psychiatrist and psychotherapist named Carl Gustav Jung, who founded analytical psychology, took inspiration from the Emerald Tablets to write a book called The 7 Sermons to the Dead. The Emerald Tablet is the only piece of non-Greek Hermetica to attract worldwide attention because it teaches a person how to set their level of consciousness to a new degree. Jung was a pupil of Sigmund Freud, but soon broke away from his teacher's philosophies. Instead, Jung devoted much research into the development of intricacies of human consciousness. Jung's most famous study was the collective of unconscious, a term that he coined himself. And that source for him having access to the Emerald Tablets is from psychologyworld.com. Again, Jermaine, no, I haven't stopped working with Matthew LaCroix. We're getting ready to do some new podcasts very soon. Matthew LaCroix has a TV show on my TV app called Mystery School. Just talking to somebody on TikTok over here. So, Professor Carl Jung goes on to say, the ancient Greek historian Herodotus believed that Khufu, aka Cheops, which is one of the pyramids, the pharaoh who put his name on one of the pyramids that already existed, by the way, enslaved his people to build this pyramid. Keep in mind that proposed method of building a pyramid was used by mud ramps. That was ridiculous because that's an absolute farce, because you would need more mud than the pyramid itself to build the ramp. That's already been proven. So the mud ramp theory is out the window. The only problem with this theory is that the mass of the ramps needed would actually be far greater than the mass of the pyramid itself. And this is why we need to pay close attention to the Emerald Tablets, because in this 36,000-year-old text, Thoth says that he built the Great Pyramid, which would backdate the age of the pyramid considerably. Once you go back in time, two precessional periods of the equinox, you then arrive at a time when the Sphinx aligns with the constellation of Leo. Now the apparent weathering of the Sphinx and its erosion makes sense. You can further explore this research by reading Graham Hancock's The Mystery of the Sphinx. The geologist Robert Schoch has done an incredible amount of research and inspection of the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, and his work has been the focal point of several documentaries which underline the significance of his arguments, which established the age of the pyramids to be much older than the Egyptologists are willing to accept. And I've worked with Robert Schoch. He's a geologist. He teaches at, I think, Stanford University. And I've done workshops, classes. I gave him a Forbidden Conscious Award 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago now. I awarded him with the Archaeologist Award because he's a mainstream archaeologist at a university, a true geologist, PhD, that went and told the truth about the age of the Sphinx and the age of the pyramids. He earned his right to be in this book. One of the biggest falsehoods about the Aztecs and the Mayans is that they were responsible for building the city of pyramids at Teotihuacan and Chichen Itza, as well as the surrounding areas. My trip to Teotihuacan in October of 2016 confirmed this when my archaeologist and guide said that neither the Mayans nor the Aztecs founded or built Teotihuacan. The city and the complex were already there when they arrived. When the dynastic era Egyptians arrived, the pyramids were already there. The dynasties, they inherited most of what was already there. Did they build anything? Yes, they did. When you go back in time, you see single piece megalithic columns of crystal diorite and crystal granite that weigh thousands of tons. As you move into the dynastic era and look at their construction, they look like megalithic stuff. In some cases they are, but the column might be made of 3 stones, elegantly cut and fit together, but you can see the seams where it's not one solid piece anymore. Why isn't it one solid piece anymore? Well, some of the knowledge had began to be lost over time moving into the future. The further back you go, the more megalithic. The forward in time you come towards our current age, you can see that some of the knowledge had begun to be lost. And I wrote about that because I want people to understand that these, the Khafre and the Khufu pyramid, those pharaohs literally just attributed themselves to those structures. Now, they may have refurbished them to help clean them up, clean up the area, maybe remove some of the sand, replace some broken stones or whatever. Overall, they did not build the entire structure. They maintained the structures, and they put their name and said, I claim the right to these structures because I'm the pharaoh. You see? What they attributed to being the buildings and the temples and the pyramids of the gods. And once you begin to research the historical timeline of the settlements and the trade in that region, you start to see how our understanding of the architecture is severely misguided. Teotihuacan's builders remain an absolute mystery. The empire of the Aztecs began almost 1,000 years after Teotihuacan became desolate. So the Teotihuacan was a thriving ancient civilization, very advanced. And why do I bring these up? Because, well, Thoth claims to have not only built the Great Pyramid at Giza, he also built the Teotihuacan pyramid complex, the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, right? The Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, the Avenue of the Dead. All this down there was built by him. This man traveled around the world rebuilding and building civilizations. 1,000 years after all those pyramids and those structures, the Kukulkan pyramid down in Chichen Itza and all that, after they were done, then all of a sudden, we see the Maya show up, the Aztecs show up, right? The Aztecs gave the city its name, meaning the city of the gods, or the city of Tahuti. And who is Tahuti in Africa? Thoth, from ancient Kemet, before it was called Egypt. So they had some passed down verbal history. They knew who was responsible in some way, but a lot of the connection to it was completely lost. Some believe that the city flourished between 1000 BC and 550 AD. The main cities of the Mayan, who were much more ancient to 2600 BC, were 700 to 1,000 miles away and would have had little reason to interact with one another, interact with their culture over mountains and treacherous jungles. So you have to compare these timelines with the Egyptian timelines. Then I give more source links. Archaeologists believe that the advanced design of Teotihuacan suggests that the ancient builders had knowledge not only of architecture, but also of complex mathematical and astronomical sciences. The layout of the 3 pyramids in Teotihuacan resemble a modern-day computer circuit board with processors, and underground channels that link the pyramid city are full of electric insulators called mica. 2 large processor chips can be seen as the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon, and the city was clearly a large electrical device. And I have a picture of what that looks like in the book. You can see that this is a giant motherboard. These computers moved data through analog means, analog data. And they did it through vibration and frequency. It is possible that in the city layout of Teotihuacan, a hidden pyramid code is waiting for exposure. Hundreds of unknown metal objects lay buried there, and the pyramid complex aligns with the Orion's belt, just like the pyramids at Giza. as well as those in China as Xi'an. In Xi'an, China, the same exact structures, the same exact alignment, the same exact coordinated pyramid structures built on top of aquifers. The base sizes match, the Orion alignment matches. So who built the pyramids in China, you say? Well, look at China's history. Who was the first emperor of China? Wang Di. He arrived on a flying dragon. Turns out he's also Thoth, the same person. This guy's traveled the planet and continued to build the same structures around the world. The base of the Pyramid of the Sun is the same exact size of the Great Pyramid in Giza in Egypt. The height of the Pyramid of the Sun is exactly and precisely 50% the height of the Great Pyramid at Giza. Both are standing on top of aquifers. Why? Because moving water underneath granite structures and stone create physiostatic electricity, which allows ions to flow up into the structure and be used for a form of fusion to make power. My source links, nationalgeographic.com. So I get into some of the measurements here at Chichen Itza. So I'm standing on the base of the Pyramid of Kukulkan. There's a picture of me this is 30-something years ago. I'm standing on the base of the Pyramid of Kukulkan. I also climbed it over 30 years ago. My first time I ever traveled anywhere. I wanted to go somewhere where I could be on a budget, because I was funding myself. I could see something ancient like a pyramid, not too far away from home. So flying from Miami to Mexico wasn't that far, 3.5-hour flight. And I knew that, I did not need a passport back then. So back then you can travel to Mexico, the Caribbean, with no passport. All you had to do was show up with your ID and your birth certificate. That was it. And so this is how I'm aging myself now. And I went to Mexico. I never forget it. I had a $500 budget, right, to take with me. 500 American dollars. This is over 30 years ago. And I go to, I land in Cancun, and I go to the cash exchange counter at the hotel, and I asked them to convert this into pesos. And they came back with all this money. They came back with so much money, stacks on stacks on stacks of cash. And at that time, I was kind of green. I'm not going to lie. I thought I was rich. I laid that money on my bed in the hotel room, and I laid in it. And I was like, I'm moving to Mexico. This is crazy. And then I went to lunch, and my sandwich was $30. And I said, I began to realize what it was their dollar didn't have the same value as our dollar. I know it sounds like, how would you not know that? Well, I was young and I was kind of green, and I didn't understand it initially, but I found out pretty quickly. I found out pretty quickly. Anyway, somebody said, you tell the story one more time, we're going to fight. All right, Candace. I know. You got to remember, Candace, a lot of people haven't heard me tell this story before. Anyway, I'm going to read, all right? I'm going to read. So I'm on page 26 now, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, all right? So there we go. Let me get rid of this clown here. 1 second. I see one crazy person in here. Let me get rid of them on TikTok. Boom. They gone. Bye-bye. All right. So I'm standing at the base of the Pyramid of Kukulkan, a.k.a. Quetzalcoatl, a.k.a. Thoth. He's got many names, same person, at Chichen Itza at the Yucatan Peninsula. And here are some interesting facts. The latitude of the Pyramid of Kukulkan, 20 degrees by 40 by 58.44 north. And now when you multiply them, you get 46,752. The pyramid is precisely the calendar. It has 91 steps on each of the 4 sides, plus the platform, plus the top. 4 times 91 plus 1 equals 365. So they've calculated they've designed it in a way that you can calculate the amount of days in a year based on the structure of the pyramid itself. The pyramid is a precise calendar. The calendar connection is also confirmed by the pyramid's orientation, marking the equinoxes and the solstices. The pyramid has 4 sides with 4 staircases dividing each side into 2 sections, a total of 8 sections. And how many sides does the pyramid in Giza have in Egypt? It's an 8-sided pyramid. I know when you look, you say it's only 4 sides. No, when you look at the Great Pyramid from above with the sun in a particular angle, you begin to see the indentions and that it's actually 8-sided, not 4. And so the calendar connection is also confirmed by the pyramid's orientation. The pyramid has 4 sides with 4 staircases dividing each side into 2 sections, total 8 sections. Using these numbers, an accurate value for 1 year is equal to 365.25. The pyramid number will perfectly relate to this at its latitude. So the latitude perfectly matches the amount of days in a year. So they've constructed it in a way that you can calculate the days in a year by several different ways within the one structure. They're letting us know that they had a lot of knowledge. And it's a time capsule of knowledge made for a time when people like us today could actually go and realize how great they were. And then I'm also standing in front of this ancient observatory here. Okay. This ancient observatory, which looks like a modern day observatory. I have a side-by-side comparison, modern day, the ancient one in Chichen Itza. And it was built by Kukulkan, also known as Thoth from Egypt, and used much later by the Mayans. You can clearly see that it resembles what we call a modern observatory. The official date of the construction given is 600 AD, but is most likely incorrect. The structure probably dates back much further in time. El Caracol aligns with the motions of Venus. The Maya assigned Venus remarkable significance. This bright planet stands in the sun's twin and also serves as the god of war. Mayan leaders scheduled suitable times for their raids according to the position of Venus and as it drifts through the heavens. The position of Venus was so important that the Maya built El Caracol's grand staircase to perfectly match Venus's most northerly position in the sky. The staircase faces 27.5 degrees north of west, which is out of line with all other buildings at the site. Additionally, the other buildings form a diagonal at the northeast and the southwest corners, which aligns with the winter solstice sunset and the summer solstice sunset. Providing this kind of detailed information that is not easily found is why they called me forbidden knowledge. I was the first person to break this down 8 years ago. And then I've got a picture of Lord Pakal and his lid, which looks like he's riding in some type of a ship. Lord Pakal, the rocket man from the past, and this image resembles, with its modern-day rocket interior, an exact match with the image that was revealed by archaeologist Alberto Ruiz Luer in 1952. Today, scholars recognize that a globally advanced civilization did exist in the ancient past. Atlanteans were already building pyramids and temples around the world, and Pakal, the great marvelous city of the pyramids, flourished in the 17th century AD and still stands as one of the greatest civilizations in the Americas. And then we get into, we got a little more time, yeah, water and emeralds. So physicists have managed to dissolve water in an emerald. It shouldn't be possible. Several Russian research teams and other teams from European countries, along with scientists from MIT, confined water molecules within nanocages in a beryl crystal and documented the phenomenon of water molecular dipoles becoming ordered. In solid-state physics, the notion of ferroelectricity refers to the property of some material whose electric dipole moments, while cooling, align themselves in an ordered pattern. Our team has succeeded in placing the water molecules under conditions allowing us to obtain the first ever reliable observations of the alignment of molecular dipoles of water. The electric fields generated by the nano-confined water could play a vital role in various phenomena studied in biology, chemistry, geology, and meteorology, or even in the formation of the planets of our solar system. In fact, many computer calculations and simulations do predict the alignment of water molecules and water dipoles, provided that hydrogen bonds are somehow diverted to target the artificially introduced surfaces or cavities, such as carbon nanotubes or two-dimensional metal substrates. The Moscow Institute of Physics and the Technology Institute have published this result in their work in the Nature and Communications Guide. So it's published, this is published science, by the way. And this is important because they were utilizing crystal technology for batteries, for energy, for transmission, for communication. And this is my hypothesis on exactly how they used the crystal technology. And it's backed up by modern science. Now, we get into D'Oreal's preface. D'Oreal needs recalling before we look at the actual text of the Emerald Tablets. Written in 1925, the preface outlines the students of the Emerald Tablets, his philosophy of how he approaches the translation and care of the tablets. D'Oreal writes in the following pages, I will reveal some of the mysteries which as yet have been only touched upon lightly, either by myself or other teachers or students of truth. Man's search for understanding of the laws which regulate his life have been unending, yet always just beyond the veil which shields the higher planes from the material man's vision, and the truth has existed, ready to be assimilated by those who enlarge their vision by turning inward, not outward in their search. In the silence of material senses lies the key to unveiling of wisdom, so he who talks does not know, and he who knows does not talk. The highest knowledge is unutterable, for it exists as an entity in lanes which transcend all material symbols. All symbols are but keys to doors leading to truths, and many times the door is not opened because the key seems so great that the things which are beyond it are not visible. If we can understand that all keys and all material symbols are manifestations, are but also extensions of the great law and truth, we will begin to develop the vision which will enable us to penetrate beyond the veil. All things in all universes move according to law, and the law which regulates the movement of the planets is no more immutable than the law which regulates the material expressions of man. One of the greatest of all cosmic laws is that which is responsible for the formation of man as a material being. The great aim of the mystery schools of all ages has been to reveal the workings of the law which connect man the material to man the spiritual. The connecting link between the material man and the spiritual man is the intellectual man, for the mind partakes of both the material and immaterial qualities. The aspirant for higher knowledge must develop in the intellectual side of his nature and so strengthen his will that is able to concentrate all powers of his being on and in the plane that he desires. The great search for light, life, and love only begins on the material plane. Carried to its ultimate, its final goal is complete oneness with the universal consciousness. The foundation in the material is only the first step, and then comes the higher goal of spiritual attainment. In the following pages, I will give the interpretation of the Emerald Tablets and their secrets, the hidden and esoteric meanings. Concealed in the words of Thoth are many meanings which do not appear on the surface. The light of knowledge brought to bear upon the tablets will open many new fields for thought. Read and be wise, but only if the light in your own consciousness awakens a deep-seated understanding, which is the inherent quality of the soul. The translator of the Emerald Tablets, who is connected with the Great White Lodge and worked his way through the pyramid priesthood, was given instruction to recover and return the ancient tablets to the Great Pyramid. The quote below comes from the preface and introduction of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, translated by M. D'Oreal. This, after adventures which need not be detailed here, was accomplished. Before returning them, he was permitted to translate and retain a copy of the wisdom of the engraved tablets. This was done in 1925, and only now has permission been given for part of it to be published. It is expected that many will scoff, yet the true student will read between the lines and gain wisdom. If the light is in you, then the light which is engraved in these tablets will respond. Now, a word as to the material aspect of the tablets. They consist of 12 emerald tablets formed in a substance of throughout alchemical transmutation. And it says that they are imperishable and resistant to all elements and substances. In effect, the atomic and cellular structure is fixed, so no change ever taking place. In this respect, they violate the law of material ionization. Upon them are engraved characters in ancient Atlantean language, characters which respond to the attuned thought waves, releasing the associated mental vibration in the mind of the reader. The tablets are fastened together with hoops of golden-colored alloy and suspended from a rod of the same material. So much material and so much for the appearance. The wisdom has been contained therein is the foundation of all of the ancient mysteries. And for the seeds with open eyes, and the person that sees with open eyes and mind, his wisdom shall be increased 100-fold. 100-fold. And that is before we even get into the first tablet. It took us 3 episodes of this to get to the beginning of the first tablet. So this is why I tell people who try to troll and say this and say that about the compendium of the Emerald Tablets. It took us 3 hours of reading. 3 hours of reading to get to the beginning of tablet number 1. That's crazy. That's because this is a book, this is a compendium. It's a compendium of knowledge. You see? And the last statement that I made is so powerful. The wisdom contained therein is the foundation of the ancient mysteries. And for the seeds and whoever sees with open eyes and mind, his wisdom shall be increased 100-fold. 100-fold. And people say, how are you doing all this? How are you manifesting all this? How are you creating all this? How are you building all this? $100-fold. Now we finally make it to tablet number 1. We just got here. I have to teach my 9 o'clock mentoring class, so I'll dabble into this, and then we'll have to pick up for episode number 4. All right? Chapter 3, tablet number 1, the history of Thoth the Atlantean. In this chapter, I will establish the true source of the teachings of Jesus. It appears that most of his biblical teachings and statements come directly from the Emerald Tablets. This also points to the possibility that Jesus may be Thoth or the son of Thoth. And then on page 34, this image that I rendered, the Giza Plateau with the bedrock with giant columns going down beneath the earth, where I state that they go on for miles and that the halls of Amenti is beneath the Great Pyramid, and a huge structure is down there with halls. 8 years ago, which was just now officially documented in 2025. And they said that I was reaching and that I was making this stuff up. I have a quote here from Herodotus. By the way, underneath the image, it says, the lost labyrinth of Egypt is without a doubt one of those incredible ancient sites that are the lost jewel to today's history. That's what it says underneath the caption of that photo that I have there. The 4th century Greek historian Herodotus records one of history's first tour guides to the ancients. And he says to the Greeks, to talk about the mysterious Egypt, this I have actually seen. He's seen this with his own eyes. Herodotus saw this when he went on tour. He says, for if anyone put together the buildings of the Greeks and display of their labors, they would seem lesser in both effort and expense to this labyrinth. He's talking about what he saw beneath the pyramids. Even the pyramids are beyond words, and each is equal to many and mighty works of the Greeks. Yet the labyrinth surpasses even the pyramids themselves. And that's an absolute fact. I've done many podcasts on this. So what's happening beneath the structure is far more greater than the construction of even the pyramids themselves. You can fit several Burj Khalifa towers down there. Incredible. And I wrote about this 8 years ago. And then we get into what Thoth says now. He says, I, Thoth, the Atlantean, master of mysteries, keeper of records, mighty king magician, living from generation to generation, being about to pass into the halls of Amenti. These records of the mighty wisdom of great Atlantis, set down for the guidance of those that are yet to come after. in the great city of Kior on the island of Undal, in a time far past, I began this incarnation. And now I go into some of my own injection here. In these passages, we can clearly see already that the tone is being set for reincarnation and regeneration. Very similar to this biblical statement in 2 Corinthians 5, 2, and 7. We grow weary in our present bodies, and we long to put on our heavenly bodies like new clothing, for we will put on heavenly bodies. We will not be spirits without bodies. We live in these earthly bodies, we groan, we sigh, but it's not that we don't want to die and get rid of these bodies, and these bodies are what clothe us. Rather, we want to put on our new bodies so that these dying bodies will be swallowed up by life. God himself has prepared for us this and guarantee that he will give us this Holy Spirit. So we are always confident, even though we know that as long as we live in these bodies, we are not at home with the Lord, for we live by believing, not by seeing. That's out of the biblical text. I just read from the Bible directly. And Thoth says, not as the little men of the present age did, the mighty ones of Atlantis live and die, but rather from eon to eon did they reincarnate their life in the halls of Amenti, where the river of life flows eternally onward. Jesus says in the New Testament, book of John 7:38, he that believes in me, out of his being shall flow the rivers of living water. And Thoth says, rather from eon to eon did they renew their lives in the halls of Amenti, where the river of life flows eternally onward. Very similar, kind of paralleling each other. And then Thoth says, 100 times 10 have I descended the dark way that led to light. And as many times as I have ascended from the darkness into the light, my strength and power have been renewed. And he said, now for a time I shall descend, and the men of Chem shall know me no more. Chem is ancient Kemet. He never names it Egypt because Egypt didn't exist back then. That's a new name given by the Greeks. So then I say, my conjecture is, understand here that the men of Chem refers to the people of Egypt. Yet notice that we get the word alchemy from the Egyptian name, chemistry, alchemy, ancient Kemet. There are other interesting statements made by the writer Thoth. He says that he has descended into the halls of Amenti, and in there his rejuvenation chambers are. He says, certainly we can understand that the concept of cellular regeneration is real. He says that he has spent a total of 10,000 years, 100 times 10, regenerating his avatar over the course of many eons. Those also references the river of life, stating, I began this incarnation from eon to eon, where the river of life flows eternally onward. Remember how Jesus makes the same reference in John 7:38. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture said, rivers of living water shall flow from within. Keep in mind, the Emerald Tablets predate the Bible by 36,000 years. In Genesis 2:10-14, which mentions the river of life into 4 heads, it juxtaposes that Stedman's Medical Dictionary is the reference of a river in the cerebral spinal fluid, which pours into 4 chambers of the brain. So we have a river of life in here with spinal fluid as the water in the river. Spinal fluid. The river of life already exists within you. And then I go into this brain scan image. I know it's kind of hard to see from there. And I go into the brain chambers, the 2 lateral ventricles, the 3rd ventricle, the 4th ventricle, and I break it all down. Connects to the central canal, which runs into the spinal canal. And these chambers contain cerebral spinal fluid. And it's made specialized cells in the ventricles of choroid plexus, which moves through this river. 4 chambers of the human brain image is, again, from just a university textbook. The more we read the Emerald Tablets, we realize that we more readily have a connection between Thoth and Jesus. And I believe it's very possible that they are one and the same. It's just my hypothesis, and I state that here in the book. And Thoth said, but in a time yet unborn, I will rise again, mighty and potent, requiring an accounting of those left behind me. Another interesting statement made by Thoth many thousands of years before Jesus tells his disciples that he will rise again in Mark 9:31. And Thoth said, "Then beware, O men of Chem, if ye have falsely betrayed my teaching, for I shall cast ye down from your high estate into darkness, into the caves of whence ye came. Betray not my secrets to the men of the north or the men of the south, lest my curse fall upon ye. Remember to heed my words, for surely I will return again and require of thee that which ye guard. I, even from beyond time and from beyond death, I will return, rewarding or punishing as ye have requited your trust." Interesting. In the biblical text of John 14:20, Jesus declares of his followers, "I go away and I come again unto you. Tell no one the Son of Man has been risen again." Thoth says, "For surely I will come again, so betray not my secrets." It's the same statement. Tell no one means betray not my secrets. This is, y'all hearing me in this live chat? Did you understand what I just, this is crazy, right? This is crazy. I made these correlations years ago. I put them in a book 8 years ago, but I had come up with these correlations 10 years ago, technically. It's interesting. At least it's interesting, right? The Bible also teaches of a judgment day. Thoth said the same thing. He's saying, hey, there's going to be a judgment day coming. If you're not ready, everyone still living and the resurrected dead will face God's judgment. Even those who profess Christianity will find judgment through the deeds that they have done in life, according to Matthew 7:21 through 23 and 2 Corinthians 5:10. Those who have lived righteous lives will be granted eternal life. Those who have lived evil lives will be condemned to eternal punishment. This record appears in several biblical passages, including Matthew 5:29 through 30, chapter 25, 31 through 46, and also Mark 9:43 through 48. And again, these statements are very reminiscent of the same things stated by Thoth over 36,000 years ago. Did Jesus Christ, sometimes referred to as his real name, Yeshua, teach reincarnation? I believe that, yes, Jesus did teach reincarnation. Additionally, reincarnation appears in the Old Testament. Read the last words of the Old Testament in the book of Malachi. "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse." Malachi 4:5 through 6. Here God is speaking through Malachi. He was a famous prophet, often quoted by great leaders throughout history, including the U.S. presidents like Donald Trump, and actually saying that Elijah is going to come again. Now we find Jesus making the same statement. So in the book of Matthew, Jesus says, among them that are born of women, let me read that again. Jesus says, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist, notwithstanding that he is the least in the kingdom of heaven and greater than me. Matthew 11:11. Then he says, and if ye will receive it, this is Elias, which was foreknown to come. Matthew 11:14. Meaning his coming was prophesied. Therefore, Jesus said he came, he was beheaded, and they did with him as they would, and so they will do to me. Right? They're talking about he came, but then they killed him again, and now they're going to take him out as well, according to what he's saying. But the scriptures concerning the coming again of Elijah flow so prominently throughout the Bible that anyone can accept the fact that they appear within the context of an already established canon. If reincarnation is so important, why is it not taught in the West? Because it's clearly in this text that the guy died and came back. He left and came back again. Some religious leaders have attempted to control people using fear tactics by saying, you know, if you don't do what I tell you to do, you're going to go to hell. And I think the early church fathers feared that if people understood reincarnation, they wouldn't go to church. They would just wave a hand at the Father and say, well, I'll go into my next life. The Apostle Paul teaches the Corinthians, for we know that when this earthly tent we live in is taken down, we will have a house in heaven, an eternal body made for us by God himself and not by human hands. We grow weary in our present bodies, and we long to put on our heavenly bodies like new clothing. For we will put on heavenly bodies. We will not be spirits without bodies. We will live in these earthly bodies. We groan and sigh, but it's not that we want to die and get rid of these bodies that clothe us. Rather, we want to put on our new bodies so that these dying bodies will be swallowed up by life. 2 Corinthians 5:1. The idea that John had been Elias or Elijah and the prophets could relive again on earth is to be found in many passages in the New Testament, but it's mostly notable and quoted by Matthew 16, 13 through 17, and Luke 9, 7 through 9, and Matthew 17, 10 through 13. If this is an enormous belief, Jesus would have combated it as he did many others. But from this, he gave complete sanction and authority by making it a basic principle, necessary condition, by adding, no one may reach the kingdom of God if he is not born again. John 3:3. Furthermore, insisting such when he added in John 3:7, do not be surprised when I say it is necessary to be born again. I only got a couple minutes to get in my class, guys and gals. Thank you for hanging out. I'm on page 39. I read through the first 2 paragraphs. We'll come back and do the Secrets of the Emerald Tablets, part 4, episode 4. And tomorrow, I'll come back tomorrow and knock it out tomorrow, right? I got to get to my mentoring class, my 4BK Inner Circle mentoring program that I teach on Wednesday nights. I got to get in there right away. Thank y'all for hanging out. I appreciate y'all. I do want to let you know that there's a link in the live chat. And by the way, TikTok, there's a link in my bio right now. You can click that link and you can register to come on tour with me. Come hang out with me in Egypt. Let's go check out some of these ancient sites together. I'm also going to drop this link for y'all in Egypt. Let's go. I'm going to drop this link in the live chat for y'all here in all the platforms simultaneously if I can. Here, let me see if it'll work. It'll work. I just dropped a link to Egypt in the live chat for all the platforms. It's in my bio right here. Egypt and Mexico. Click that link and register ASAP. And y'all can come hang out with me and you can come see the stuff that I was talking about today with your own eyes and your own hands. You get to touch them, smell them, see them, experience these sites. These types of tours are once in a lifetime. You never know when they're going to take travel away. You never know when they're going to shut down ancient sites. We just don't know. There are some sites that I used to visit that you can't visit anymore. Right? I don't know if I'll ever get back to Baalbek. I don't know if it'll ever happen because of the war going on with Israel and Lebanon. It might never happen. I know a few years ago, they lit some of the Moai heads on fire on Easter Island. They tried to destroy all the Moai heads. I mean, come on. Luckily, they didn't get to destroy all of them before they got caught and they stopped some of the fires. We never know when it's going to be the last time we get to see something, experience something. So these trips are priceless. You can't even put a price on them. So click that link in my bio, TikTok, and register for my tours. Right over here on everyone else, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you are. Click the link and register and come hang out with me for a couple of weeks at these ancient sites and tell me if your life doesn't change. Because I guarantee a transformation. I guarantee it. All right. Anyway, I got to run. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. I got to sign off. Peace.